Hi, welcome to my channel. My name is Emily and today we are going to be talking about the Rosie Project series review. I absolutely love this series and I can't wait to get more into detail about it. Before I continue with the video, make sure you hit subscribe so you get notified for every video I upload. So I'll go through each book and I will tell my feelings about each book in the series, and then at the end I'll give an overall opinion of how I thought the series was and if it would be something I recommend to people. The Rosie Project book series is adult contemporary novels that are focused around the life of Don Tillman, who is a professor at one of the universities in Melbourne in genetics. It focuses around him and wanting to find love, as he is 40 years old and he has had zero luck in finding love. The twist with these novels is that it is highly hinted that he may or may not be on the autism spectrum, which adds its own humor but its own way of dealing with different issues, opposed to other people who might look at a situation and think, well, that's how you're meant to do it. But it shows how this guy, how he feels like he's wired differently, which is, it's an interesting take on someone's life. So the first book focuses around him finding love. He finds Rosie, as the title would suggest, and it's him trying to deal with whether or not he has feelings for Rosie, whether or not he can try to have feelings, as he is someone that doesn't exactly wire to having feelings towards people, and he doesn't deal with gaining connections very well, as it is very prominent in the series how he does not like to clashes with people too often. So the second book is The Rosie Effect, which I did not like. I thought this book nearly ruined the first book for me. I absolutely hated Don. He felt so unrelatable. I don't know, it might have been just the things he was going through that I just couldn't relate to, but it just felt like that he just wanted to try and make himself more of a nuisance than what he was prior in the first book. It was just not the best book to follow up such an amazing book. For me, at the very least, I was reading reviews and people loved how he was struggling in this book, but his struggles just made me not like him very much. I suppose it's not a very good way of saying that, but anyway, he still has the social issues, it is often questioned whether or not he is on the autism spectrum, which it's very it's sad that people have to result in questioning who he is so then they understand who he is. They don't need an explanation for who he is, which is what the third book really dives into, because the university that he's working with wants a diagnosis of him so then they can have an excuse as to why he did something in one of his classes, which I could understand, but I wouldn't. It's just, it's a horrible kind of feeling, the roller coaster he goes through trying to figure out how he can get away with not having to be tested, because he does not want that. He doesn't want to associate himself as someone who is autistic when he's done so long without having to be diagnosed or labeled as it. And then his son moves to a new school and they have issues with his son, and then this teachers at the school were pressuring the parents to get him tested for autism. So and they were pretty much treating him as an autistic child, even though he had never been tested, or it's just that he went really well with all the whenever they gave him something that had to help him with his autism, or with autistic traits and stuff like that, he was very receptive to it. And so it pretty much shows this beautiful story about how the son is growing up, trying to fit in and trying not to be an outcast. But then as he's growing up, he realizes that he himself needed to classify himself as something so he can easily be able to be a part of something, because he ended up starting getting friends who were autistic and on the spectrum. And then he realizes that, you know, these people, they're just people. And he ends up, this is a bit of a spoiler, but he ends up claiming himself as autistic, even though he's never been tested. He claims that he is because he's done tests online and stuff like that, and everyone calls him that. So he decided to take the power and be what people want him to be, who he wants to be, but claiming it as his own thing, which it's beautiful in its own way. But I just didn't like the way that they went around that, being like, now he just claims he's autistic, but Don ends up doing the same thing, which apparently helped, like it showed throughout the book that it helped him when he did that. But for me, I just wasn't behind the whole let's just diagnose ourselves and, you know, be a part of something. I don't know, I did not like that, but I loved the story and how beautiful it was to just show everything combine as one. So I love the first book for its own reasons. You could read it as a standalone without having to read the other books by it. Like, you just can just read it by itself. And it's amazing. I related to Don. Like, it felt like I understood how he thought, how he saw the world for like that brief moment. And it was just so interesting to see how he thinks and how he sees like other people. And as well, like, you also got to see what people thought of him, because like his friends are trying to help him become a better person for Rosie, because they know that he needs to not change per se, but he needs to understand what needs Rosie needs before he can help her get those needs. And his way of doing that was trying to find her biological father, which it was its own roller coaster. It was a beautiful story. Like, the ups and downs of that was absolutely amazing. I won't spoil who the father is, but I couldn't really fault it. I gave it 4 stars on Goodreads. I think it was just because I wasn't expecting what I got out of this book. It was just amazingly written. Yeah, and it's easy to read too. Like, the pages are quite large and the lettering is quite large too. So it is a quick read for someone that just wants a book in between. I enjoyed this series so much. It was easy to read. It was beautifully written. I really enjoyed reading every book when I got to it, except the second book, but I nearly had to put the second book down because I was starting to get annoyed with the characters. It felt like no one was listening to their partners. It felt like no one was listening to what they wanted. And it was all about trying to figure out what they wanted, rather than trying to figure out, like, Don didn't even try figuring out what Rosie wanted, even though Rosie kept telling him, oh, I just want some independence in this. And then Don was like, well, you need to follow this, that, because you're pregnant. But it was like, could you listen to her? She's said it multiple times that she is literally like just wanting her freedom during this pregnancy, rather than you having to come in and take control, because she just wants this tiny thing to herself. And like, she understands that maybe the way that she might go through pregnancy might affect the baby, but at the same time she wants her freedom in what she does. But the first and the third book, I absolutely enjoyed those. I would suggest, like, if you're going to read all the books, read all of them. Like, don't skip a book just because I said that I didn't like the second. It gives you enough backstory for the third book as to what happens and why it happens, kind of thing. So just do you. But even if you had just the first book, you can read it, not having to read any of the other books, and still enjoy the books. It's that good. Thank you for watching my review. I hope you enjoyed watching this video as much as I enjoyed making it. Please subscribe, like the video if you liked it, and comment something, whatever you want to comment. Maybe a book I might want to read next. Who knows? I hope you have a good one, and goodbye.